Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show we talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Reacher Season 3, Episode 7. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're picking up where the last episode left off, and Duffy and Reacher don't immediately go to LA like they were planning to last episode. They are taking a stop first to Teresa's grandmother. She doesn't know what Duffy does, but just kind of thinks like, oh yeah, I forgot what, she never specified what line of work she was, but maybe she thinks she's just kind of like I forgot, like there was a word she used. I don't know, like maybe like a clinic worker that helps out with people and stuff like that. I don't think she knows that she's an agent, because obviously it's like, well, you don't, because she thinks Teresa's just kind of maybe on a bender, and it's like, oh, she's sliding back into using drugs. So because obviously she doesn't know Duffy's a DEA agent that drew her into all of this, but nevertheless. She checks in on her because she feels a personal responsibility, because I guess like Teresa might be the only family she's got left. So she kind of really goes above and beyond, where it's just like this person who, I'm not only doing this just for Teresa's sake, I'm doing this for her grandmother's sake, because her grandmother needs to know. I'm telling her that I've got this. I'm going to see this through. I even loved her pointing out like, oh, the Reacher and Duffy of it all. And I love Reacher just being like, yeah, she only wants me for my body, and them laughing and stuff. But Teresa's grandma talking about like how good her granddaughter is. It's like, yes, she's had her troubles, but at the end of the day, she's a good girl, and just obviously wants her back. She's worried and concerned. So this is just extra motivation, especially because they're taking steps in the right direction to find Teresa. I mean, obviously, like Harley was kind of like quote unquote their last, uh, vestige of information about her, but obviously he didn't really know anything other than like, oh, she was always going to be like Quinn, which we do see Teresa this episode, that Quinn continuing to be probably one of the most despicable villains we've ever gotten in the show. Like, we've come across some pretty heinous people. Quinn's on some next level despicable of like, oh, like telling Teresa, he's like, you're lucky that you are as valuable as you are, because he's like, honestly, I would use you up and then cut off a good bit, and then like, dump your body. You're just like, Jesus Christ. Especially because Neely confronted the guy who hired the guys from last episode to kill her, and basically he talks about, which is so interesting because I guess Quinn was already using his name up until like 5 years ago, because then he took over the name Julius McCabe after his previous business partners. Things kind of went sideways, and he slaughtered the entire family associated with it, including the kids. And then sometime later, he picked up on Beck. So you're like, man. So it's interesting because you're like, so he legitimately doesn't remember Reacher at all. I guess just that bullet did give him some form of amnesia, because I was thinking like, oh, maybe he's never known his name was Xavier Quinn, but this guy already knew him as Xavier Quinn, even saying like, yo, he changed his name after, But it's like, because the way the guy was talking, he was like, this is like, he was working with Xavier, like, that family in Chicago he was connected to. So, and he knows the name Xavier Quinn, which we know that all went down like over a decade ago. So, like, Reacher quote unquote killing him, or believing to have killed him. So that's why I was like, is it just the trauma and he blocked out Reacher? It's so interesting. He legitimately can't remember Reacher, the guy who put a bullet in his head. To be fair, he only met Reacher once, and it was when Reacher tried to kill him, so it makes sense, but still. But my whole point for going on that whole diatribe is like, well, I guess that means his memory for the most part was fully intact, because I'd wondered previously, like, did he have to rebuild his network and stuff like that? I mean, obviously you couldn't have been active as Xavier Quinn, because that would have reached Reacher's ears. That would have reached someone's ears in like the decade you've been around. So it's like, I don't know. Either way, I'm getting caught up in the semantics of it, and like maybe that is a little clearer to other people, and I'm just being an idiot. But either way, my whole point for bringing that up was just to bring up how horrendous and terrible and evil Quinn is, and saying all that to Teresa, keeping her drugged up, because it makes her a lot more docile and probably makes it easier to sell her off to like the buyers and stuff. I thought it was interesting that little extra line of, you're lucky you're a redhead. I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? I wonder, does the person he's selling her to have like a redhead proclivity or something like that? You did have Reacher and Duffy make their way to LA because they're trying to screw over a person who's connected, I think, to Quinn's business. His name is Darian. He's kind of in this, like, um, shady business trade. And so they kind of jam him up, which I love that Reacher's like, oh, no, you pushed a DEA agent. He's like, what? No, I didn't. He's like, no, we'll lie about it. And basically, even if you don't really go to jail, you'll spend some time in jail and you'll have to spend years and years upon court cases, or you can have a conversation with us right now. I was like, the guy's like, this is some BS. It's like, yo. And then later on, forcing his hand into, it's like, oh, this guy, like, I didn't know what angle it was because they were going through some old footage and Reacher was like, oh, this is how we're going to get to Darian. And I was like, we never saw what it was, but it ended up being like, it's the interesting follow through of like, it's because he had like a handicap like thing for his vehicle. They confronted his doctor about it, and the doctor had to admit, like, okay, like, if you're gonna come after me for my skeletons in my closet, so yes, I will do whatever you tell me to. So, screwing over Darian in that part. So he had to set up a deal with Beck because this was going to be their way to be able to meet up with Beck without like drawing so much unnecessary attention. So, but also they left Darian behind to be like, oh yeah, we're also like, oh, you might avoid this, but some people are going to be looking through this gallery of yours, and if hopefully there's nothing shady here, because if it is, wow, you're kind of screwed. And I love that line from Duffy being like, that's Rhonda's face, because she had told the story about her boyfriend and her cousin Rhonda. I was like, that's super effed up. God, it's not as bad. It's in the same ballpark. It's cousins to the whole thing of, hey, you find out your significant other is banging or sleeping with your sibling. That's effed up. Once again, the cousin of it all makes it as not as bad, but just kind of as bad, but just slightly less bad. Either way, it's like, oh yeah, my boyfriend was a piece of work, and she was like, to be fair, Rhonda was kind of a piece of work too. So. But like her being so excited, it was like, that's the Rhonda face I was talking about as she was leaving, as Darian was kind of looking like, damn it, like they're screwing me over. So, and I love when they do get back for the deal. Billy's like, oh, why would you have rugby? Oh my God, you guys were supposed to be in LA working, and it's like, yeah, they ended up hooking up because Reacher had promised to put Teresa first, because it's like, right, she's important to you because you're important to me, and because she's important to you, she's important to me as well. So, and then like Duffy making the first move, like popping open the shirt, and Reacher eyes open, making out with her, being like, whoa, 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 wait. Didn't you just say this was never going to happen? What changed your mind? She's like, I got to know you for who you were. And they banged it out. So it's like, wow. Once again, all the ladies in his life, because he's hooked up with everyone, Roscoe, Dixon, and now Duffy. So, and I love when they meet up with Neely later on. She immediately catches the vibes, like, oh, okay, I see how this is. I was like, okay, good for you, boss, type of situation. But either way, well, I'll go ahead and talk about that. The situation they're in is complicated because they set up the whole the deal between Darren and Beck, but it was Neely that stood in and was telling Beck and filling him in on about everything. It's like, you need to join Reacher's side, because if you don't, you will get killed, because the last people, an entire family that was associated with Quinn, he murdered them, changed his name, and moved on. So you don't want that to happen to you or Richard, so you need to help us. And it's like, well, he's kind of left out in the cold after everything, so he doesn't know as much, but he's going to, ultimately work with them because it is going to be in the best interest of his son. Because he even saying, like, at the end of the day, I'm going to go to jail, but don't let anything happen to my son. Like, my son is innocent in all this. He shouldn't have to suffer for my crimes. And I think that leads to a beautiful, like, conversation between him and Richard later. We'll get to in a second, but Neely's talking to Reacher about all this, because it turns out that they're there's a flight coming in from Yemen who are the buyers, and then Reacher's kind of saying like this might be leading to like a domestic terrorist situation, or rather like there are sales planted here that those people are like going to be giving those weapons to sell or to those sales here, and that could be an attack on the U.S. on that front. So it's like kind of like this could have bigger ramifications. Than just some regular arms deal. But it's like, yeah, that puts us in a complicated situation. Quinn will have a small army, people locked and loaded, and there's only 4 of us. There's this team. And because Neely's like, I know what Cole meant to you. Even though I didn't know her, I know what Dominique meant to you. And for Reacher to say the line, Cole meant to me what you mean to me. And I was like, that's actually really sweet. That's the sweetest thing Reacher could say. And even, like, it didn't take her back, but you could tell like it hit home for Neely. Because it's the thing of, he's a man who can sometimes wear his heart on his sleeve, even though he tries to be stoic and pretend like he doesn't. But he is a man who kind of does wear his heart on his sleeve, and he also is a man of few words and doesn't always verbally tell people how he feels. That's the closest thing he's ever probably, like, he tells Neely's great and she's so smart and stuff like that. That's his kind of like his stoic way of handling it. But this is probably like the most he's ever probably put it into words how important she is to him. Because it's kind of like the way I'm acting about the Cole situation. It's like something like that ever happened to you, Neely, I would pop off on someone too, like to the same degree, It's interesting too when you like kind of like think about the parallel between like the conversation between Reacher and Neely and the conversation between Beck and Richard. There's a lot of parallels in that regard. But also Neely kind of returned in a favor being like, yo, like, because she already knew about everything. She's like, yo, I was actually going to like make my way to like Portland because I found out about, some of this stuff. He was like, oh, if I hadn't called you about the deal, like you feeling, if I hadn't brought you into the fold to play the role of like this weapon dealer to kind of communicate with Beck, you would have, I would have already been here because I was going to help you see this through regardless. Because I know you want to keep me at a distance just to keep me safe, but it's like, no, like I would have seen this through because I've always got your back, boss type of situation. So, and even breaking down the conversation about, well, you should probably keep Duffy out of this because obviously you have feelings for her. He's like, yeah, I do, but what I like about her is that she doesn't care if she gets hurt. So there's no getting her out of this. She's stubborn, especially because she has her own skin in the game. That being Teresa is like, well, what about the old man? No knees, no back, all heart. And it's like, is this our team? And Reacher's like, yeah, this is our team. So some very interesting squads. Reacher's kind of put together over these past 3, in squad in season 1, his squad in season 2, and now this squad. But yeah, tying this into the Richard and Beck conversation. Beck, for him, it's like things change between you and me, Richard, the moment your mom died. He's like, that light inside of you kind of died, and he's just like, you were broken, and you kind of got distant from me, and because I thought, it seems like, at first I was like, oh, I wonder if it was him kind of diving into work to deal with his grief. But it's like Richard was kind of very probably like, he's the one that turned a little more inward. And the reason why Beck was so cold towards Richard, it's like, I was cold and distant because he's like, I know it doesn't make any sense. On some crazy logical way, it makes some sense. But you nearly fell apart when you fell apart when your mom died. I thought like what I'm mixed up in right now will not end well. And so it'd be easier for you that if you were like, we had some distance between us, that when I died, it wouldn't hit you as hard. You'd be able to survive. And it's just, he just wants what's best for his son. Cause he's trying to tell Richard like everything's going to be okay. But he knows like, well, for one, if I get out of this, I'm going to prison, but at least I'll be alive. But he also knows there's probably a pretty good chance I won't survive this because Quinn will probably kill me. So, and it's just, I think it's the first time him and Richard have had probably a really honest conversation in a very long time. And it was really beautiful and sentimental. Like I said, I love the parallels between like, both, like I said, the Neely and Reacher of it all, and the Beck and Richard of it all. So, and especially because he found out like Richard got him that toy gun, and it's also like, I'm trying to repair it too. So all of that like sentimentality and wanting to do what's best for his son made him like, you know what, I'm gonna confront uh McCabe or Xavier Quinn and make him like, well, kind of get him to tell me details of it. But it's like, well, you can only stretch that so far. And it's like, oh, let's let Richard go out and go to the movies or something. He doesn't have to go to my birthday party. But Quinn's like, no, he's going to be here where my people can keep an eye on him because we still need our leverage. And even grabbing on to Beck's other ear, yanking on it. It's like, oh, do you understand? And it's like, good. Now get the fuck out of my office, which was previously Beck's office. So it's just kind of like, yeah, everything in your life, it's kind of under my control and my thumb. Because even if this deal goes the way he wants it to, there has already been too much DEA and ATF like breathing down his neck. So once this deal goes through, he is going to like cut bait and run, but he's also going to kill them because they're still loose ends. So it is, and I think Neely had said that too. Like you know too much, and things are kind of screwed as they are. He's going to cut bait and run, and by cut bait, he's going to literally kill you guys who are loose ends. So for Beck, he chose what he was going to do, the best option, and that was work with Reacher. So told him the information about the deal, but everything seemed like it was all hunky-dory until Villanueva and Duffy dropped the info on Reacher. Hey, we're bringing in the ATF. I mean, it makes sense. We can't just like be the four of us, including Neely, who's currently tracking the buyers. It's like we can't just like go guns and blazing with everything involved. It's like we have to get backup, we have to inform people, but Reacher doesn't want to do that. For him, it is still all about taking down Quinn, even though he's like, no, I promised you it'll be about taking, saving Teresa too. But it's like, no, at no point did you say like, oh, we're going to be stopping this deal from going down or saving Teresa. It was like the word that came out of your mouth was taking down Quinn, so. But it's also like, yes, what this means to Reacher and why he can't let it go. I even love him and Duffy talking about it later on. And it's just like, he's like, I want to see Rhonda's face is how he's describing it when it comes to Quinn. Because she's like, you want to kill him. Like, we could send him to jail and the Russians who are pissed at him will most likely kill him. I mean, because he's already screwed currently. That's why he has to make this deal work or they will kill him. So he's already in that pinch of a situation. So, like, you could leave this to him being in prison, but you also don't want to take the chance he could get away. And it's like, would he likely be able to get away? Most likely not. He'd be probably dead to rights. So, yes, but Reacher, it's personal. As he said, like, I don't want justice. I want vengeance. Which, hearing those words is so poetic. Because, obviously, if you have been on the internet, there's the constant conversations about Alan Ritchson, people wanting, like, fan casting him as the DCU Batman. That's kind of seems like not the case, but if the opportunity, he's like, yes, if I had the opportunity, I would. You wouldn't have to pay me to play Batman. But obviously, he's had his spin in the DC universe, both as Aquaman and Hulk. So my whole point, which is like obviously no stranger to the superhero world. And obviously the vengeance line just obviously makes me think of Batman, so that's the correlation in my head. Just funny to think about that. But Duffy and them are trying to talk him down from like his perspective, even when they went into the ATF and got their asses handed to them. Like, you guys held on to this information. Our agent is dead on the inside. It's like, well, we didn't know about that, sir. You were handling this whole investigation off book. It's like, yeah, you guys are going to get reprimanded. Villanueva tried to take the heat, but Duffy was like, no, it's on me. He's like, don't worry, guys. There's plenty of heat to go around. I hope you guys were prepared to know, like, your careers are basically fucked the moment you stepped into this room. So, and Villanueva and Duffy were going to be kicked off of this because it's like, right, this should have been an ATF investigation from the beginning, but it's like, right, if it wasn't for us, you wouldn't even know what's going on right now, so you have to cut us in. So they're stuck, surveillance inside the van while the whole operation's going down, and Richard's in the same boat because they were like, either you are in the van with them or you can fuck off. I thought Reacher was going to be like, fine, I'll fuck off. But he knew this was his only opportunity. And if he walked away, like, he needs to get the okay to be there in the first place. But it's like, well, we find out later on it's because he was buying a sniper rifle, to like knock out Quinn. Even though it's like, he's hoping it's all going to go down and Teresa's going to be there. So it's like, cool. The moment I get the opportunity, I'm going to kill Quinn. We don't have to worry about Teresa's going to be here. We'll be able to grab her up. Was he even really thinking about that? I don't know. Even Duffy's like, okay, you tell me you're on my side. You're going to help me with the Teresa day. But at the same time, you went to a store and bought a sniper rifle. He's like, well, I went to a pawn shop. It's like, you and your damn semantics and stuff like that. So hell, he even gave Neely the heads up. He was like, I just wanted to tell you, like, basically get rid of any connection you had to me, like, over the past week. She's like, why? She's like, oh, are you about to do something that'll lead to, like, the federal government being super pissed at you? He's like, yeah, and I don't want this to kind of fall back on you. Like, if it's going to be me, it's going to be me. Because Duffy's like, they'll never let you go. They'll always be tracking you. You'll never be able to settle down. You'll be moving from town to town. And it's like, yeah, for Reacher, that sounds like life, because he's like he hasn't settled down in a very long time, so it kind of meant nothing to him, which is once again showing how no matter how good you are, no matter how smart you can be, like that rationale gets thrown out the window the moment, like, yo, the embodiment of all of your ire, that is your hatred towards Quinn, is there. You have a moment to kind of put this all to rest once and for all, because you're just not going to let him rot away in a prison. It's like, no, he's going to die. I tried it before, failed. I'm going to make sure I see it through this time. But then we ultimately end up finding out at the end of the episode, the whole thing was a setup. Beck was at a place that's a trap. So I guess the people that are showing up there are meant to either, like, Beck is going to take the fall for it. I don't know if that's a point of it, or the people that are there are planning on lighting up all the agents that might be there, as well as Beck. But also because the actual deal is going down at Beck's place, where Richie currently is residing and forced to be. To be fair, before he left, it's like Beck did tell Richard, like, yo, hide in your room like around 9 o'clock and lock the door. So, but it implies, like, right, this wasn't just a last minute thing. Quinn probably knew the entire time. Like, this was, well, maybe after Beck asked him for the location, he was like, okay, this was where the deal was going to go, but then he changed it last minute to take place at the Beck's place. Or maybe this was always going to be the deal, like, after, like, having, both an ATF agent and Reacher be found out, you're like, okay, I need to have a setup plan for, like I said, either throw Beck to the wolves by having him be the fall guy, or make it a situation where he and I end up killing him and whatever else, and making it all fall on him in some capacity or way. So, like I said, just a question of when he ended up orchestrating this. Because when did he figure out that does he know for sure that Beck sold him out and is working against him, or is it just a precaution considering everything, because he is a very cautious person? Once again, there were 2 wolves in sheep clothing amongst your operation. So it's going to be so fascinating to see how this all plays out next episode being the season finale. The big question is, who's going to survive? I could just as easily feel like Beck might not survive. I talked about it previously. I was like, I can feel it being like a Duffy or Villanueva situation. Hopefully both of them survive. This feels like a situation where they might survive, but we'll have to wait to see. But I definitely feel like it could be easily like a Beck doesn't survive situation. We definitely going to have the showdown between Paulie and Reacher. I'm also curious because because the deal is going down at Beck's place, Richard's definitely got to have his moment where he showcases what Reacher taught him, and it's like, it's got to be someone bigger than him. And I'm assuming, like, it's going to be like maybe him versus Quinn type of thing. Maybe he does something there, or I doubt it's going to be him and Paulie. I feel like that's got to be Reacher and Paulie, but it's also got to be Reacher and Beck. So I'm curious, but like, he's definitely like, Richard's definitely going to have his moment to shine using what Reacher taught him fighting wise. But I'm so curious to see how this all shakes up and plays out. Obviously, where this all leaves Reacher at the end. Obviously, him and Duffy, it's like, well, we're going to go our separate ways. Plus, you're going to kind of get raked over the coals because of this whole thing, which she's fine with it if she's able to hopefully get Teresa out of this, which that's going to be a sucky situation regardless, because it's like all the drugs that have been pumped into her. Like if she like manages to survive this, like, and even she said it herself, like, please, I don't want Teresa to be my Cole. And it's like, Reacher understood that, but even with her saying that, he still like went through the trouble of, I'm going to put Quinn down. If anything, probably making that parallel might have solidified it even more for him of, I need to kill Quinn. But like I said, we'll ultimately have to see how the season finale wraps up and concludes all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.